Welcome back. This tutorial I'm going to take you through how to just make your own basic illustration. You should have read through this portal page on illustration, and as you can see it's very important for any graphic designer to know how to do some illustration work. There's people that all they do is illustration and they're quite good at it. It's quite detailed and in-depth, but it's great to have just a basic understanding of how to do one. That's a photo I had taken of a little raccoon and a tracing there, and I'm going to show you how to do a tracing now in Illustrator. Now you just need to set up a new document. What I'm going to introduce you to is the thing called the pen tool, which is over here, and it's exactly like you're drawing a pen line. So as you can see here, what I'm doing is creating just a random shape just to show you, and then I'm connecting it back up to the anchor there to make sure that it's connected. Now what we need to do is, once you create a complete shape, you can change the shape. So you can see here that I can squash it, I can stretch my shape, but more importantly, when I click on the direct selection arrow, which is the white one, the black one's kind of just the general selection tool, you can click on what we call the anchor points, and these are our anchor points here and any of those little white dots. And when you click on a white dot, you can see that I can change what they call the handle. So the anchor's the bit in the middle, the handle's the bit on the outside, and I can actually move and stretch my handle depending on what sort of shape I would like to create. So you can see there that I can create quite a smooth shape, I can create quite a sort of strong curve, sharp curve, like so, and move bits and pieces around to make whatever shape I need to make. I can then obviously select the entire thing and make it a filled color. I can put an outline stroke on it like so and beef up my stroke, and you can see I've created just a very simple basic illustration shape to start with. I could then press E, which is our free transform tool, hold shift and make him slightly smaller. So there I've just made a basic shape. That is the most basic tool, this pen tool, and it's quite easy to use once you get the hang of it, and you don't actually need to make it, you just do it quite rough to start with, and then you can fix things up. So it's very important that you don't spend hours to start with. You get your basic shapes up, and then you use your direct selection tool to move all your parts about and move them around as you see fit. Now what I'm going to do is do a tracing, which is what a lot of illustrations are done from. Some people come up with things out of their head, which is good for the imagination, but a lot of people use photographs and images, and then they make their illustrations based on those images and change them as they go. So what we need to do is go File, Place, and we're just going to place a JPEG in, so a picture that I've just taken off the net of a paper plane. I would like you just to start thinking about what you would like to make an illustration of, some photograph you might have. Try and keep it simple, keep it to an object, don't pick something too in-depth, so don't try and trace an entire car or a motorbike or something, but yeah, something simple object that you know can sort of test your skills, because you're going to make a nice illustration out of it and then upload it to your blog. So you can see I've got my picture there. So now we're going to have a look at layers, and in our layer you can see that we've got layer 1, and that's got the picture of our plane on it. We're going to create ourselves a new layer which says is layer 2, and it's kind of got red because you can see blue is selected when we select an object on layer 1. And you can also lock a layer. So if I lock this layer here, you can see I can't move that anymore, and when I actually just create a random shape over the top there, you can see that that's on layer 2. So it's very important you understand how the layers work. I can turn my layer 2 off or layer 1 off depending on what I need to do. So it's very important when you do an illustration you don't do it on the same layer, you have yourself a separate layer. So I'm going to delete that box on this layer. As you can see, it's got the little red outline because it's got the red over there. We're going to delete this, but we're going to draw on over the top and illustrate this paper plane that we can see here from this net image. The other thing you could do, perhaps if you wanted, so you can see your lines a little bit better, is sometimes when I trace, I find my image and go to opacity and just drop it back a bit so it's a bit fainter to see. and we need to select our object as we do that. So you'll see that I can make it quite faint so my lines stand out a bit more. That's a common practice as well. So I've got that, go back into my layers, lock it up, and now I'm going to start doing an illustration of this paper plane over the top. I'm going to use my pen tool. I'm simply just going to click, sorry, on layer 2, layer 1's locked, that's why it wouldn't let me work on it. And I'm just going to do this at the moment and connect it back up to the top. And I'm going to flip it so that I've just got a white fill with a black outline at the moment. And with my anchor point, just slide that in and move this one so that I've got it exact where I want it. So you can see that that's created just such a basic shape, and if you want to check that, you turn your eye off, and I've just created such a very simple shape there. Now the next shape I'm going to create is another shape using the pen tool, and I'm going to go from right up in here on the path, and I'm going to stretch out a bit of an anchor to get us started, and then I'm going to go down into here, and I'm just making a very general sort of shape here, and I'll explain why in a second. So now I've created two shapes, which you can see there. When we turn our plane off, it doesn't seem to make too much sense at the moment, but it will when I explain it. So what I need to do is just check that I've made that correctly. So I just get my white arrow, and you'll watch how on here I can change my handles so you can see what I'm doing there. And also if you want to see straight through it so I can match it up to the plane, I'm just going to make the fill blank so I can really see what I'm doing. Now with the handles, you can see that I can do one handle at a time or move my anchor point around. But what also is good is rather than moving sort of both handles at once, is you can just move one at a time. So if I hold the Alt key on my keyboard, you can see I'm straightening that side up, but it actually hasn't touched that curve over there. And then I use Alt over here, and I've got that nice shape. Now I'm not too fussed about how it comes around here. Reason being is because once I put it back to like this, and I go into my actual layer, so layer 2, I can go down, and I can actually drag my path up because I know which one's which so that it's on top. The other way you can do it without dragging your layers is you can say send to back. So I can click on this, I can say arrange, send backward, and it brings this guy in front. Now the reason why I just left him quite loose was because I knew I want to have this guy in the front, and so sometimes that's how you do shapes. So you can see there that it's starting to come along now. When I take my paper plane off, it actually looks like, starting to look like a paper plane. The reason why you use big shapes like that is to stop you doing something like this. So rather than getting in there, so imagine I'm drawing this next piece and I'm drawing like this, and then I'm trying to match it up, and I'm just making double as many lines all the time. So I'm trying to make it look exactly like what it would, and I've just done a whole bunch of outlines that are unnecessary. So I'm just going to delete that whole shape. I'm going to concentrate on just getting a couple of key lines right, and it doesn't have to be perfect, mind you, but I'm just going to create from there a line that comes to there, line that comes all the way across, and you can see I can just join that up. Again, I'm not too worried that it doesn't match up perfectly on that line, because all I'm going to do is just go arrange, send to back, and you can see it's fitted in nicely there. And same goes for over here. So there's not too many curves, there looks like a bit of a curve coming down in this one here. So I'm going to start off with a bit of a curve it up, trying to match that in a little bit, and then coming back to my starting point, and then just going arrange, send to back. And so you can see I've still manipulated a bit of a curve on my shape. Now I've chosen something very simple for the purpose that I didn't want to be too long in the tutorial, but hopefully you guys would choose something where you've got a bit more sort of curve shape, just like you can see on the raccoon I did. There was all kinds of curves and anchor points and handles that were a good challenge to play with. And now I'm just going to get my pen tool again, and I think I should, so you can see I'm creating a bit of an anchor point to say I want it to head off in that direction, and then I want it to curve a little bit into here, and then I'm going to bring that guy, so remember just holding the Alt option on the tab, bringing him back in, and I want him coming all the way back up into there and then to the top, and that's a complete shape there with a bit of a curve on it. So really I've only got one more shape that I need to sketch in, and he's going to have a little bit of curve and then just come right back up into here and back to the start again. So I've got a number of different shapes there. The only thing I need to do is start sending him backward. And now you can see, hopefully, when we turn layer 1 off and come back out of layer 2, we've got ourselves a paper plane. Now, just to finish our paper plane off, to make him look a little bit more realistic, what we could do, select the whole thing, we can group him, we can press E so we can transform him, put him on a different angle that we've got there. Now I might ungroup him so I can edit him. But we've got all those different shapes, and it could be a matter of just slightly colouring it, so making maybe a sort of slight greeny colour plane, and as you do each selection you would want to make it the same colour but maybe slightly darker, slightly greyer if it's on the underside for a shadow. In here, do the same thing. So you can see how that's starting to take effect. Oops. So yeah, you can see how it's starting to create a plane, as well as that if I want to just thicken up that stroke, probably not too much, but maybe 1 point just to give it a bit more thickness, start to create it. Now the other thing you can do to make it look a bit more realistic is use a gradient, which kind of throws some light onto it. And what you need to do for that is you select a section, so let's say this bit here, and we go into our gradient tool, which is there or over on the other side, and move it. What we do is we can apply our gradient in, so you can just double click and because it brings up the fill that has a gradient. So you can see that there, and what I can do is say, yep, I want some white on that side, and just put it into CMYK. That bit's okay. I want this guy to be like a greeny colour, so I just bring that down and choose maybe not that green, a bit of a darker kind of greeny colour perhaps, trying to get that grey colour a bit back somewhere in there. And once we have that colour, whatever the colour may be, I'll just leave that for the moment. You can see that it's brought up over here, green to white. You can also change the angle, so you can see how it's changing the angle of the gradient and the opacity and where it starts and finishes as well. So you can actually then go in and apply your gradient in there by just using the gradient tool. So that's the angle it's on at the moment. You can see that the green, you can make it a lot darker. Up here you can bring your whiter colour up and you can see how it starts to change the angle as well. I can change the depth of field and how it's actually going to look from start to finish. So I could change it to make it left to right type gradient, up and down. And what I probably would do is do something that sort of matches in to my angle a little bit, something like that. Find out where my white is, how much white do I want, do I want my green so dark on the edge? Probably not. Just like that, and you can see, I know it doesn't match in too well with that bluey colour that we've got. If we got a bit more of a bluey kind of grey, hopefully that will start to match in a bit better. Yeah, so it's starting to go like that, and you can see that it actually fades into the white. Maybe bring the white a little bit lower, a bit more depth on it, and you can see how you can create such a strong contrast. You can actually move where you want the middle ground to sit as well, so you get a fair bit of control with your gradients, and it just really starts to bring your image to life. So you can either use solid fill, use your gradients, and start to create your illustration. And from what I have just previously done, I just wanted to show you. So there's your paper plane. You would want to add something else in. You could make a background, and as you can see here, this is what I've done. I've gone and put some gradients in, put some lighting in, chuck some illustrations of trees in, put some stars in, a bit of a sun flare, a gradient background that changes colour, and then I've got myself a little illustration. So as you can see, that's the basic skills that you need to know. Your task is to illustrate something based on a photograph or some sort of net image and make a little artwork and upload it to your folio site.